Okay guys, this is the World War I unit performance task. This is where you put everything together, take all the knowledge that you've learned about World War I and apply it to today's world. So let's just go ahead and read the job description. You've been hired by the current president's administration to put together a visual or presentation explaining the lessons we can learn from World War I and apply to the U.S. today. The administration realizes that a thorough understanding of the past should inform our current actions and foreign policies. In your visual, the President has asked that you include details from World War I addressing issues such as nationalism, ethnic conflict, and civil liberties. In order to better understand the conflict, please advise the President about the background of this event, include the causes of the conflict, and describe the course of U.S. involvement, both abroad and at home. Also include a section about the end of the war and the peace process. Because the role of the U.S. was controversial both before and after the war, the President has asked that you include your opinions about the proper role of the U.S. in the world today using World War I as your reference. So, in other words, explain what lessons you think the U.S. should take from our past experience in this conflict, and how do those lessons relate to our founding ideals, things we talked about in Chapter 2 of the book. Please include a minimum of 4 lessons. Because the President has many matters to attend to, he would like to be able to view your presentation in less than 4 minutes. That's papers no longer than 3 pages. So, here's the formats that we suggest you use. If you want to use any others, come see your teacher for permission. But I would say the easiest option would be a written letter to the President just in a Google Doc. Whichever format you choose, you're going to attach it down here when you turn in your work. You could also use a Google presentation or a Prezi, or you could build a website via Google Sites or Weebly. So, like I said, if there's any other options you want to use, see your teacher. But this is not an appropriate time to experiment with new technology. We're more concerned about your knowledge and reasoning. Not your use of technology. So, what do we have here? There's your job description. The task is to build 4 lessons. You are a World War I expert, and you need to give the President 4 lessons. And remember that you need to demonstrate understanding of World War I. You need to tie the lesson into something that we're doing in the world today, and you need to tie it into our founding ideals. So let's go through a few of these. The document at the bottom is the performance task, and it's got the job description written out again, and then it's also got the rubric that you will be graded upon. So if you want an A, you're looking up here. When it comes to understanding of the events, if you want an A, you need to show a sophisticated understanding of the relevant events. The concepts, evidence, and information demonstrate a strong grasp of all the required criteria. When it comes to clarity and reasoning, rationale for the lessons, the reasoning reflects thoughtful analysis of the events, and it is clear, logical, and well explained. It is obvious to the reader why each lesson was chosen, and the relationship to the ideals is explained thoroughly. Quality. The product is highly effective. The ideas are presented in an engaging, polished, clear, and thorough manner. Superior craftsmanship and attention to detail. So you can kind of scroll through that and reference that rubric as you progress through this. The next document up is really just a rubric for preparation. You're going to get quite a bit of class time to work on this. So, A+, the student works diligently on the assignment project during all allotted work time. B, the student works on the assignment diligently when reminded once. A C, the student works on the assignment when presented with a potential consequence, like a detention. And then there's two F's there, maybe an F and an F minus. F, the student refuses to engage and is either working on something else or not working at all. And maybe F minus, student's just not working at all. No participation. All right, there's another document you can reference. All right, how are we going to build this thing? How are we going to build these 4 lessons that we're going to give to the president? Well, let's open this World War I Unit Performance Task Scaffold. We're going to build something. We need a scaffold. So we've kind of put this together. Dear Mr. President, I have been asked by you and your advisors to give background information about World War I and explain the lessons we can learn from the war. Please let me describe a few key concepts pertaining to World War I. We're going to break it down this way. The first thing you should do before you start putting together your lessons is go back into your chapters for World War I and build some background knowledge. So, there were many causes for World War I. You're going to go into chapter 22 and list some examples. I think it might be a good idea. Titan color blue here. We don't want the highlight. We all know, I've done it now. We all know the main causes of the war. We list them like this, right? What do those stand for? I'm going to talk, I know as I go back into chapter 22, I'm going to talk about militarism. I'm going to talk about alliances. I'm going to talk about imperialism. And I'm going to try to spell that right. And I'm going to talk about nationalism. Okay? And there's more than that. I'm just getting you started there. So you're going to go in there, go back to chapter 22 in your book. I know I need to find, the chapters from neutrality to war. I need to find some information on causes of the war. Maybe some stuff at section 3 here. The sinking of the Lusitania, unrestricted submarine warfare, the Sussex Pledge. There's a lot of stuff in there that you're just kind of spill all that information into the causes of World War II. I think some of those that I just listed in section 3 would go down here. There were several events that moved the U.S. closer to the war. If I go back to my subscription, I'm going to take some of these things. Unrestricted submarine warfare, the Sussex Pledge, preparedness movement. Rather than just listing them, I've got to list as much information as I can. I've got to talk about, demonstrate knowledge here. So, do the same thing for numbers 3 and 4. Soldiers were not the only people asked to sacrifice in World War I. Non-combatants were also affected. You'd find that information in chapters 23 and 24. And then we need to include something about the end of the war and the peace process. So number 4, should the U.S., you need to take a position here. The U.S. should have ratified or rejected the Treaty of Versailles. Think about things that we learned in that chapter, the harshness of the treaty, Woodrow Wilson's 14 points, and include that information down here. Really, you should end up with at least a paragraph for each of these 4 questions. Okay, when you're done with that, you're just going to go down here and start putting together a topic sentence for each of your lessons. The lesson should be at least a paragraph. And I'm going to get to an example of strong work. So the next document down, Johnson copy of a sample lesson. Go ahead and open that one up. This is a piece of work that was done by a student last year. Short, but to the point. We'll talk about some key points here. So the first highlighted sentence is her lesson idea. She says, my first lesson, my first of 4, deals with the issue of U.S. neutrality. At the beginning of the war, Wilson declared the U.S. neutral and claimed we would trade with both sides in order to financially benefit from the war. You guys all remember that? From the textbook, we attempted to do this until the British blockaded Germany, which made U.S. trade with Germany impossible. The U.S. did not protest about the blockade and continued to trade with the British. This made Germany believe that the U.S. was not truly neutral and made U.S. ships targets of Germany's unrestricted submarine warfare. So what has she done in this first part of her lesson? She has clearly demonstrated that she understands the U.S. policy of neutrality. She's used some key terms like unrestricted submarine warfare. The British, she talked about the British blockade, U.S. neutrality. She clearly demonstrated her understanding of the event. Now, down here, she's going to tie it either to the present or the future. So she says this, in the future, if the U.S. declares itself neutral in a conflict, we should act in a neutral manner. This would ensure that our neutrality will be respected. Acting this way will be in line with our ideals because it would demonstrate that the U.S. values equality when dealing with other nations. So what has she done down here? Up here we said she demonstrated understanding of the U.S. policy of neutrality. Down here she's tied it into present day or future and said, you know, what lessons have we learned, Mr. President? If we say we're neutral, we better truly act neutral. Lastly, this highlighted area here, she has tied it into our founding ideals that we learned about in Chapter 2. The U.S. demonstrating that it values equality when dealing with other nations. Remember our founding ideals of liberty, opportunity, democracy, rights, and equality. So, short, to the point. There's her first lesson. Now she needs to get 3 more, and she will be done with the assignment. So once again, back to the assignment. There's the job description. There are a lot of documents that you should be referencing. And when I go back to the web presence, there's a couple more documents, links to documents here that may be of assistance to you as well. Remember, when your 4 lessons are finished, you're just going to attach whatever type of media you use, whichever format you use, to the assignment here in Classroom. If it's a doc or a presentation, whatever it is, just attach it, and if you have a problem, see me. So that's it. World War I Unit Performance Task, your textbook chapters 22 through 25.